All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Workflow Wednesday. This week, we're joined by composer, producer, VR, sound design expert, and multi instrumentalist, I believe I saw, Justin Lassen. Thank you very much for joining us today. And also our internal expert, Matt Bach, our senior labs technician and sort of content creator expert. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Thanks for
of
having me.
course.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Justin, just in case anybody doesn't already know, go ahead and introduce yourself. Give us a little background about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Justin Lassen, and I'm a sound designer, composer, producer, remixer. I also work in the tech field with video game companies and like Intel, Microsoft on new technologies and things. And I'm kind of just everyone's favorite little underdog that helps on all kinds of little projects. I also have been working in virtual reality for the last 6 years, so I got to work on a bunch of cool stuff like the Spider-Man VR experience and all kinds of stuff. So that's a little bit about me.
That's super cool. Actually, when I was kind of doing a little bit of research the other day, I was a little shocked actually to see all of the projects that you've at least are credited on, and then never and hadn't really heard of you outside of the work that we've done, as a company together. And I feel like that's a little unfair. You've done some really cool stuff, and I'm surprised that you aren't a bigger name in I suppose just
Right.
public.
One of the other things I do a lot is I do factory content for composing software and audio and editing software. So a lot of my sonic DNA is in keyboards and plugins and software. And they'll be like, oh, I use, Cakewalk or Personas. And I'm like, yeah, a little piece of me is in each of those. So I'm sort of, behind the scenes famous, I guess.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a lot of famous people know who I am, but then, yeah, the general public are like, oh, yeah, who's that guy? Oh, cool. So
right.
but I'm not trying to be famous. I just want to work on cool projects. So yeah.
I can dig that. Yeah. I feel similarly about my work.
Yeah, I do think it's funny how a lot of the things that really make like a film like really feel good are the small things that people don't even realize. Audio is a huge one, color, all that kind of stuff. Like there's no big colorist names that anyone knows either, but
Right.
like it's so essential. And same
Yeah.
thing with audio. Like audio is like probably the number one thing that like makes like a good film from a mediocre film. At least I feel like. Besides like story. I mean, obviously if the story's crap.
Yeah,
But
the thing I always say is Jaws wouldn't be as scary without John Williams' two notes.
Oh,
right.
right.
And could you actually sit through 3.5 hours of Lord of the Rings without that beautiful score? I don't know.
Mhm.
I think that as humans, we need that music and that connection
Oh,
to
yeah.
like the emotional side of sound
Mm.
to kind of hang in there and connect with the characters and everything happening on screen. And we even connect on just on a visceral level with just ambience, just
Hmm.
beautiful sonic design of like a cave or an alien spaceship. Without that ambience, it's just set design.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I will
I don't
say
know.
one of the things that like as I've gotten more into like the content creation field, there are some things I wish I didn't know. How like every time there's like a hawk or a bird, it's
Oh no.
But you're right, there is a lot of stuff that's reused over and over again. But typically, sound designers will take it and try to at least add some mix verb to it, or a slight flange to it, or some chorus, or something to change it and make it theirs. Because a lot of us, yeah, we do use a lot of the same sample libraries, especially for music production, like strings and orchestral stuff, and even synth stuff. So Roland has these cool keyboards, and there's a million sounds in them, but you give it to a million different people, and they're all going to use it differently. So even though we all have the same tool, we can do completely far out there, otherworldly things with it. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's
cool.
yeah.
super cool. That's cool. We did have a little bit of a hiccup there, so we missed a portion of what you guys were talking about, but I think it'll be okay. We might be having a few technical difficulties during this particular episode, so please, audience, please forgive us and kind of hang in there. But yeah. So
It's
yeah.
tough with all
Um,
this stuff now. Like we can make sure our internet works and our computers are fine, but we can't control the servers that all this is going through.
right. Yeah. So I've been curious. I, I I don't mean to be too shallow or basic, but I am really curious how you got into like music and sound design and what you do in the beginning.
Oh yeah. So I'm one of those '90s kids that grew up, on really crazy Windows 98, Windows 95 computers. So, and before that, I was doing like sequencing in Windows 3.1 and
Whoa.
Atari 800 XL. So I go way back to when sequencing and MIDI was kind of really new. And my first DAW was Cakewalk, which used to come out when there was this company called Creative Labs
Okay.
that created sound cards. We don't really need
Hmm.
sound cards anymore because it's sort of built into motherboards now. But there was a time when like having the coolest sound card was like a big deal.
Oh yeah.
And so Cakewalk is what kind of got me into it. And then obviously I'm back, a MySpace kid too. So like my music was out on MySpace and I was collecting friends or whatever that was all about. And then there was this one site called mp3.com,
Hmm.
and it allowed artists to upload their tracks and find a following and listeners and things like that. So I sent out demos and stuff, and we used to have these things called CDRs
Okay.
back in the day for demos. And I
Yeah.
sent them out to like a million different record labels and famous people, and hoping that somebody would respond. And of course, nobody responded except for one person, Robert Miles, rest in peace. He was my mentor. He's the guy that brought me into the record industry. He
Oh,
actually had a
cool.
song called Children that was a massive hit. It had like hundreds of millions of listens. It's still really cool. And if you Google it, you'll see he's a really cool guy. And he believed in me. He heard my symphonic string arrangements and took me under his wing and helped me start into the remix field. Gave me a lot of introductions to different celebrities and bigger artists. And he set me on the path to start doing remixes for like Madonna and Linkin Park and Nine Inch Nails and a lot of the
Wow.
different artists that I got to get stems from and do cool remixes with. So that was kind of the start. And later I got into sound design for video games and doing like whooshes and gunshots and hitting doors and slamming things and I really got into Foley work and field recording. So to this day, that's been one of my favorite things, to take found sounds and ambience and environmental stuff and mix it together and create um, you know new textures and new objects and new things
Oh
to
wow.
play with. And then later on, I got into Unreal Engine and Unity and learned how to do blueprints and take those sounds and like design uh, custom objects for games. So yeah, it's been a long
Oh,
process, but it's been cool. Yeah.
that sounds like a lot of fun. So like that's the kind of thing you see behind the scenes where like they'll take like a head of cabbage and slam it onto a car hood to make like a punch sound or something like that kind of a thing.
That's right. Yeah. So a single sound effect in a film or a game might be like 18 or even 100 layers of different things with all kinds of plugins and effects running on it. And then the player or the listener of the movie thinks, oh, cool, that was a neat like zombie's head rolling off of a thing, but they don't realize that we actually had to break a few cabbages and what, like you said, different things like that to get to the perfect one. And especially with games, because you want variation, you can't just have one or it'll sound like machine gun effect where it's just the same thing over and over again. So we'll
Hmm.
do like 18 different versions so that it's always a little bit different. It gets fun though. It's cool.
That's cool. Wow. So recently, I know, recently you did kind of like a world tour of sorts for field recording, I think as you had mentioned. Um, that must have been pretty cool. I'm curious to know more about like the technical side of that. Either difficulties, like what kind of equipment you were using, and just how you did that.
Yeah, so that was for my Black Fox Society sound library. And we went to 22 different countries. And the biggest difficult thing was going through airports and having to explain to security people that all of this recording equipment is not a bomb. It is not dangerous. I had to open it up, turn it on, make sure it worked for all of them, because I'm using ambisonic mics, which look kind of crazy. They've got 4 capsules on them to capture like 360 audio of the scene. And then of course I had like a Zoom recorder, which had all these crazy cables sticking out of it. It's like this like box type thing. And so it ends up looking like you have this like high-end crazy equipment, and it's heavy. I'm having it in all these little backpacks, and I'm having to go on trains and planes and boats and not get it wet or let it fall in the river, like when we were in the jungle and stuff. And when it was rainy, I had to like put things over it. So the hardest part was just keeping that stuff safe. But
Sure.
but once you get to the various places, it's actually really.
Ah, dang it. Hold on.
And crazy ambience and stuff. And I captured impulse responses, which is where you play a frequency of a tone into a room, capture the response that it plays out in the room, and then I can bring it back to my DAW and then simulate those reverbs of those environments right back home in my studio. So I did that all over the world, got a bunch of that stuff, and created a massive library of 8.5 hours
Wow.
of surround spatial audio.
So you can get like I don't know what you would call it, the room tone, or not room tone, but like you can recreate what it would sound like in different buildings.
Right, yeah, so IR, which is impulse response, is you play an impulse and then the room gives you a response. And then with a convolution reverb plugin, you can actually then add that simulated version of that room to whatever you're working on. Unreal is even doing that with Unreal Engine 5 that they showed off the demo for. They're kind of simulating caves and things to give more realism in video games too. So, but we've had it in the audio world for so many years now. It's a sound designer's tool. Like we use it as a painting tool for sound. It's pretty cool.
Oh, neat. That's a cool way of putting it. A painting tool for sound. Huh. So I'm curious. So you and I have a little bit of a background. I built one of your machines a few years back. Oh,
I was gonna say you cut out for a second. I didn't.
Oh, sorry about that. So you and I have a little bit of a background. I built one of your PCs a few years back, and at that time, and I think you're still kind of into that space. It was for VR sound production, I think. And I know we had a good conversation about like how all of that works. How has things changed since then? It's been a few years.
Yeah, so that system was definitely a smaller system, and it had even less space. And now that I have bigger sound libraries, I've needed more terabytes of space for the system. So on my new Puget system, there's now like 4 terabyte drives instead of 2, because I was getting really close to always maxing those out. And of course, with the newer software I've wanted higher clock count and less cores,
Oh,
so that
okay.
I can run more, which is a big difference. Because last time we went with more core count and then but smaller clock count. So, but yeah, that's about it. Otherwise, this is actually this Puget system right here is the fastest computer I've ever had. So I'm so grateful for it. It's amazing.
That's
What about on
Yeah,
like the software side or the tools side? Have the tools advanced a lot in the last few years?
yeah. So a lot of in the audio world, DAWs or digital audio workstations are becoming multi-core or for parallel processing.
hey.
So now, like within Studio One, the DAW that I use, you can actually disable any cores you want, or turn them on and off based on how you want your system. So that's been really nice to finally catch up with like video editing people who've kind of had that for a long time. And it's just it's amazing like what you can do when you can load up a million plugins without worrying about the system crashing or the DAW shutting down. thanks to it parallel processing across the, all the cores. So yeah.
Nice. That's pretty cool. We did have a question from Twitch. DJ Summerwolf was asking what kind of 4 terabyte drives. I believe we use Western Digital for, unless you had the.
I think you put in some Samsung.
The big M.2 drives.
Yeah.
Or, no, I suppose it might be the
no,
SSDs.
They for the storage drives that you put my samples on. They're the big 2.5 SSDs. But for my system C drive, you put a M.2.
There we go.
Yeah. So, and it's good enough for orchestral libraries and all my beats and all my sound effects to run off the 4 terabytes. Because that was one of the big things on the phone. You guys asked me, like, what do you need more of? I'm like, I need more space. I don't want to have to keep plugging in USB 3 drives to try to let things transfer and stuff. So it's kind of nice that it's all in the system now. So, yeah.
Well, Samsung just launched an 8 terabyte drive. We just added those to our systems. They're weird though. They don't have as good of speed or something. Or I don't know. They're a weird drive, but still 8 terabyte solid state is amazing. We can do that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Awesome.
That's pretty cool. I wonder. Oh, I had another question and I lost it. Hang on, I'm sorry. It was in regards to part of our email. I apologize for.
I'll ask one while he's talking about that.
Go ahead, Matt.
Are you using speakers?
Right now I'm using these ones from Presonus called Aris 4.5 BT or Bluetooth. And they're kind of cool because they're unassuming. I don't know if you can kind of see it in the picture. They look kind of little. Yeah. But they pack a punch. And I've had giant JBL monitors and I've had all kinds of different monitors over the years. And for my little writing studio here, these things like can kick. Like they are so loud. I'm blown away. You wouldn't think that from how small the drivers are, but I dig them. They're and they're portable. I can take them from room to room or do whatever I want with them. So they're nice.
Huh. I asked because I've been trying to figure out audio. I got some, I think they're Mackeys, because I'm not going to spend a lot of money because I'm not doing really audio stuff. But like those ones had like a hum, like a pretty loud hum anytime they were on. So those kind of sucked. I just switched over to some Pioneers and they seem to be much better. But again, I'm not an actual big old audiophile. I just want something that's going to work well.
These aren't even that expensive, actually. Like these are like on the low end as far as price. And you wouldn't think that they sound this good for how much they cost. They're really cool. I recommend them for sure.
Presonus? I'll check them out.
Yeah, they're cool.
Right on.
Yeah, those are not bad at all.
I'm curious more about the VR work and kind of what goes into, I suppose like a combination of like the goal for the VR sound design and things like that, but then also the process there, like how do you get to the end result?
Yeah, so thankfully in my last system, you guys put a 1080 Ti in when I was working on Spider-Man and stuff, so that was really nice to be able to run everything without any problems. But as far as the process of getting audio in the we have to make these things called blueprints. And blueprints are basically it's kind of like you can script the audio to do and behave however you want it to behave. So you might get a bunch of mono sources or stereo sources or even ambisonic data. You can bring them all in and give them rules, set random generators. Like for footsteps, you wouldn't want it to always be the same, so you can like randomize like the pitches a little bit and things like that. There's different third-party solutions as well, but I find that Unreal has beautiful tools built in, ready to go. So there's that, and then there's of course crushing down an ambisonic formatted WAV file down to stereo, because not everything has to be in that format. Sometimes you can just take a couple mono sources in the engine and place them in different parts of the level, and then they create their own spatial environment. but that's kind of how we immerse people in VR. If the audio isn't like truly like all around you, not just like think of it like this: if I played an MP3, it would lock to my head like this, and then as I move, that audio is just doing that. But imagine if it's just here, and then when I move around, the audio is like it stays in place, but then I am now the perceptor of that audio. So it's cool. And there in the beginning of VR, there really was no rules. It was like Wild West, like 6 years ago. Like the headsets, I remember like getting early access to like the Oculus before it was called the Oculus. When it was just like Velcro and duct tape taped to the head, and it was like, "Hey, Justin, come into the secret room and check this out," kind of vibe. So yeah, it was really neat to kind of see this industry kind of explode so quickly, like this vertical slice that's happened. And I hope it continues. I do hope that the next generation of all the headsets get better and faster and cooler, and actually more available, because it's actually been really disappointing that they've been out of stock everywhere, and not just because of COVID-19 and the pandemic and quarantine and stuff, but just in general, it's hard to get people into them when the barrier of entry was so high. So it's neat that they're making like more affordable VR headsets so that more people can actually enjoy these things. And it's neat that even the processing power is getting smaller and smaller, where it's like, wow, like even the Quest can just run on its own, which is really nice.
That's really
I still prefer the RTX, 2080 Ti kind of VR experience with like ray tracing and all that fun stuff. But even like a 1060 can even still give you a decent VR experience. So yeah, it's been a really fun industry to be part of, to talk to the makers and shakers and creators of, and we're all kind of friends. The thing about virtual reality is that like on our Facebook networks, we're all buds. We're all friends. We're all getting awards together and cheering each other on. And like I remember when we got nominated for the Emmy for Spider-Man, we were in good company. We had like NASA, we had like Pixar's Coco, we had all these, but eventually NASA won. But we always told ourselves, like, if you're gonna lose to somebody, let it be NASA, because that's. But it's still an honor to be nominated. It's like now we get to say as a team that we were an Emmy-nominated VR team. So it's like it's a huge honor. It's really cool. And we didn't set out thinking of those things. What we really wanted to do is just make a really cool immersive experience where you could be Spider-Man and like shoot out webs and that kind of thing. So it was fun. It was a really cool project.
That's neat. What would you say is the hardest part about VR sound design?
The hardest part about VR sound design. I think for me, there's not really a hard part. It's just fun.
Cool.
I mean, I guess the hardest part about sound design in general is sourcing the material, and that means field recording and getting out in the world with microphones and doing the hard legwork of it. Because once you get all that data on a drive back on your computer at home, you can kind of sit down and chill. But getting out there and actually like doing that hard work, that's a whole project on its own. That should be its own title. But as sound designers, we have to wear multiple hats. So we're always like, no, I'll get the material and I'll edit it down and I'll organize it. And then you come back with like terabytes. Like on that trip, I came back with 5 terabytes of audio.
Wow.
And that's a lot to go through.
It's a lot of audio.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of the hardest part, is just organizing it. Because a lot of times these microphones and recorders, they call it like untitled 1, 2, 3. So everything doesn't have a title. So you bring it back to the computer and you're like, what was this? Oh, I think this was on the river. Oh, no. That was in the, we were on the elephant, recording the elephant when we did that, or whatever. And so you have to kind of go through and name them. And so we kind of had a process where each time we got back to the hotel room to at least try to go through the day's work and kind of name like at least where a certain recording was made, so we can, determine what to do with it later. But organization is pretty tough. But I think that goes for almost any project, even people shooting video and stuff. I'm sure they get a lot of untitled .m4as or whatever, MP4s. So yeah.
I'm curious how, because audio, I don't know if I have a great sense of like how much space things take up. So like if you're recording like a minute of audio out there, because I'm assuming you're recording at pretty high quality if you're trying to do this stuff, like how much space does that take up?
Oh
Like
my
is it,
gosh. So yeah, so the recorder I had can record up to 192 kilohertz. And that gives you a lot of headroom. And
yeah,
I personally didn't record that high because like I'm not trying to do scientific calculations of Doppler effects and things like that. But it's cool that the technology can do that, and most DAWs can support editing that format. I kept my recording around 96 kilohertz. Uh, so like think of it like 44.1 is CD quality, 48 is like DVD, 96 is just um, a little bit overkill. It's like Blu-ray. And then I went with 24-bit instead of 16-bit, so that had more resolution. So when you're editing, you can always go down, but when you try to like go up, it's not going to do anything because it can't
yeah,
create resolution that's not there to begin with.
right.
But it takes up a lot of, like even 96 takes up a lot of space. And it definitely takes a lot more processing power on the computer when you get back home, once you have a 96-24 session instead of a 44-16 session. And because of that, you'll see your CPU meter like jump up the more tracks you get. Like a lot of our sound designs that I came back with, like one beautiful ambience might actually be like 100 layers of different sounds. So I might take
Sure.
like
Wow.
a deep cave sound in South Korea, mix it with a creepy sound I got underneath the Vatican, and a bunch of other stuff, and put them all together and kind of space them out, then re-render it as one beautiful ambiance. But it's kind of like I didn't set out to make a sound library in the sense that it's like here's a river, here's a tree. I wanted to be like more otherworldly about it and kind of give everything creepy names like the dark chambers where secrets are told. Like that's the kind of titles I came up with, so that when people that are working at theme parks and doing experiential stuff for rides and things, when they go through this library, they can actually just draw on just the titles and go, oh wow, a chamber of dark secrets. Okay, and they don't know it's just the Vatican or whatever,
Sure.
or a basilica or a catacomb or something like that. So, but that was
That's
fun.
neat.
It was cool to kind of be creative with the names as well as the audio.
Yeah. That's neat. It kind of gives an opportunity to feel it more than just it's not so much where the sound came from, but more the like emotion that it evokes, which I think is super cool.
Right, yeah. And a lot of it is when I would go back to listen to the finished pieces, they're very meditative. They're very like, they're almost like beautiful sound sculptures. Like, even if you didn't put it in a video game or put it in a movie trailer, if you were just listening to these ambiences, you would really feel transported to some other place. And I made sure that every single ambient loop was seamless. So as it got to the end, it started over perfectly without any
Yeah.
hiccups or whatever, so that designers could quickly throw them into videos or throw them into VR or whatever.
That's
And but it was fun. It's just, and then I got lost in it. Like during editing, I just sit back and go, oh, that's nice. Like
Have you ever thought of making one of those YouTube channels that just does the either white noise or like the relaxing
right.
things? It's like 10 hours of creek burbling.
I could do that. Mine would be a little bit creepier because my library, I sort of set it in the tone of like secret societies, and I had like a story with it, like Illuminati meets whatever. Because I try to give all my sound libraries different themes like that. This was actually a sequel to my library from 10 years ago called White Rabbit Asylum, which was the theme was like insane asylums and getting lost in your mind and anxiety and insanity and madness. And this time I was like, okay, Black Fox Society, the sequel will be about secret societies and where chambers where like people that control us are at. It's all just imaginary, but I'm just having fun with those concepts and creating audio that fits that. But then I find that a lot of my friends put it in their video games and their projects, in ways that I couldn't have even imagined. Like, it's like, wow, okay, you thought that, okay, cool, that fits, you know? And that's what's cool about making a library, because you're kind of giving people a starting point, and then they can take it and do whatever they want with it. They can edit the hell out of it, they can put effects on it, and it becomes their creation after that point. So, yeah. And then I've done a lot of like presets anyway for keyboards and plugins and stuff over the years. So I've heard my stuff like on the radio, and commercials and TV, but it's neat to see what
cool.
people do with it. It's like, if I die, at least little pieces of me live on out in the world for creators to have fun with. So yeah.
That's neat. I love the way you talk about it as sound as art. A lot of times we get caught up in the idea of art as a lot of a visual medium. And I love how you're talking about it as like a sculpture, and like you as an experience in that way is really, really neat. I was also curious, how exactly do you get that seamless loop? Like what goes into, because like I've I've tried to do it myself way back in the past, and it's silly, and you can hear the the break essentially. But like, how do you do that? That's amazing.
So there's two techniques I use. The most obvious one is that most audio editors like Adobe Audition and SoundForge and like Presonus Studio One will allow you to go to null. Null is when in a sine wave that's going up and down from the string or the line in the middle, and that's how that's a waveform. It goes up and down to create sound. At the intersection of which the line hits the bottom, you're at 0. And if you get 0 and 0, no matter what, it's not going to clip. Now that's one way. Now the way that I've done it actually for my library is because I add a lot of reverbs and effects and stuff. So if you tried to like actually cut that loop out, the tail of the reverb would actually stop at that point, and then it would be unnatural and kind of horrible sounding. So what I've done is I've created my layers, like 18 layers of stuff here, and then added all the reverbs and effects. But then I took that chunk and I copied it here, and then I took that chunk and I copied it here. Then I render all 3 of them out, and then I take another loop and I cut just the center out, so that then the reverb tail of A goes into B, and then B goes into C, and I'm only cutting B out, and then all of a sudden those reverbs are the same reverbs as that, if that makes any sense.
It's so that the reverbs aren't at the end, technically, they're in the middle.
Right. And some DAWs like FL Studio, or what I affectionately remember as Fruity Loops, because that's one of the old school DAWs that I actually started on, has a feature in it called seamless render, where they actually do all that heavy lifting for you. And I haven't seen any other DAWs add that yet. I've definitely made requests to different DAW manufacturers, like, you guys got to do what FL Studio did. It's so rad. But in the meantime, this technique still works really well, and it allows me to really critically listen to the end result. So those are 2 ways to do it.
Neat. Oh, thank you. That's pretty cool. DJ Summerwolf on Twitch is wondering, how do we find examples of your work?
So you can go to justinlassen.com, and there's actually links to all this Black Fox Society stuff, including a huge article on exactly how it was made and stuff like that. And there's demo tracks and SoundCloud links and all that stuff there as well. So yeah.
All right. I'm gonna punch that into the chat here. Boop. Oh, what? I'm curious. What's been your most? So actually, 2-part question: most challenging project, but then also like your favorite one, the one that stands out as like, man, that was super awesome.
Oh man.
That you can talk about.
Oh yeah, I forget about that part.
I do have some favorites that I can't talk about, but as far as what I can talk about, some of the most, most challenging that I can't talk about. I can start with some of my favorites.
Yeah, all right.
Some of my favorite work isn't even sound design. Like I love sound design and I love what I'm getting to do and creating all this content for different people to use. But some of my favorite work is actually my remix work, like working with artists and stems and making cool beats. And like one of the ones that put me on the map in a big way is Chester Bennington was also, rest in peace, was a dear friend of mine, was the singer of Linkin Park, and he's from Arizona. I grew up in Arizona, of course. And thanks to them, I got to do a really cool remix of Faint, called Faint EMT Remix. And I didn't realize, like, I just did this really cool remix, but I didn't realize it was going to catch on as much as it did once Linkin Park was promoting it back then. And we've had like over 100 million listens on all kinds of different channels. And it kept getting pulled down because different fans of Linkin Park would stick it on their own channel, and then it'd have 28 million views, and then pulled down, and then another 20 million. Like this thing did really well, and I was really, really proud of that one. I did some of my vocals on it, so I got to sing with Chester on it, so it was kind of fun. And then, but yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. I just love remixing. I love taking art and saying, how can I change this? How can I sculpt it into something a little bit different? You know, and I add strings and all kinds of orchestral and cinematic stuff to it. So it was really, really fun. And then of course, some of the most challenging stuff I do is sound effects for video games, because a lot of times you'll work with a video game developer that goes, okay, we're going to work on magic spells now. So this spell is like, it needs to sound like smoke, and then it has to morph into like, then you turn something in, and they're like, yeah, it's cool, but can you change this or that? And then you have to add like 6 more layers to it. It's like not magic enough for them. And then, but you do that for so many different spells and things, and then you turn in all this stuff. But at the end of the day, when you hear it in the game, you're like, okay, that was cool. That was awesome. So it was kind of worth it. But yeah, it's just that the back and forth of getting the sound effects right on video games is definitely quite a challenging task.
Well, because I'm sure they have something in their head of what it's supposed to be.
Well, it's not even that. They're more like, we'll know it when we hear it. Like they don't really give you direction. They're just like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but just do a bunch of stuff, send it to us. And when we hear what we like, that's when we'll say yes. And that happens a lot with music, where some companies, they design by committee in that regard, where they're like, okay, it has to sound like rock meets underwater. And you're like, I don't know what that means, but I'll give it a shot. Your direction's a little bit vague, but okay. And then you turn in something that it sounds exactly like that. And then they're like, yeah, no, that's not what we were thinking. We actually want it to be more like Hans Zimmer meets Metallica. And then my first thought is, well, why don't you just go hire Hans Zimmer or Metallica? Well, we can't afford them. It's like, well, then just, let your designer make a little bit of decisions to help you get to your own original sound instead of, so that's kind of fun to play with, that sort of aspect. But yeah, it's like designed by committee a lot of times. But at the end of the day, it's fun to work on this stuff. And even if I'm having to do that sometimes, it could be so much worse. Like I love that I even get to play with audio, and it really does feel magical. Like I'm a big fan of Tesla, where the secrets of the universe are sound and frequency, and you've probably heard that quote from Nikola Tesla. But it's true. I feel like music, as you guys know, probably from having favorite bands and stuff, is a form of mind control. Like it hypnotizes you. When you get when I put Radiohead on in the car and I'm driving, I'm like in a zone. Like I can drive so good when there's music on. Like I'm like safely going through lanes, and like it's somehow music just like I have goosebumps just telling you that. And I feel like all of us as humans have that sort of natural connection to music. It's saved my life so many times like when I'm feeling really sad or depressed or whatever, if I put on just some kind of music, I'm now away from Earth. I'm in my own little zone, and I feel like I'm not alone when I say that, because I talk to so many music fans and just other humans that are like, yep, that's the power of music. And to be one of the crafters and creators of the tools and the source and content and instruments that so many awesome composers and designers get to use, that's a huge honor. So I feel like I'm serving other people. So it's nice.
Oh, that's super cool. Wow. Yeah. I feel very similar. Like classical in general tends to have more of a emotional response for me than a lot of other music. Just kind of just fades into the background. So yeah, I can relate a little bit to that. It's pretty
My
cool.
my comment on that is that one of my favorite artists in the world, and I listen to like everything from the hardest core metal to you name it, like I love it all. But my favorite artist, without a doubt, is Enya. She's so she's oh my god, she's like above on so many different levels ahead of all of us, and I love her story. I love the way that she writes. I love just the world she takes us to. And there's so many like of my friends that are like some of the most hardcore guitar players in the world that'll say like, yeah, Enya's my favorite too. So it's kind of neat that because you're right, like we're like as much as it's fun to fit into certain genres for like the product or the commercial side of it, it's all music is just music no matter what we're listening to. And you're right, classical and ambient and just that kind of stuff. And when I went to Ireland, we made sure to drive by Enya's house and saw her castle. We're like, whoa, we just
Oh,
drove
that's
by
cool.
Enya's house. Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's great. We do have another question from YouTube. This one's actually from our friend Ant Pruitt. He says, Timbaland mentions his mom embracing him beating and tapping on things as a small child. This pretty much led him into his career early. Was this skill something that came to you early on or later in life?
Yeah, so my first experience with recording was actually when my parents in the 80s got me one of those boom boxes that had a tiny little mic on it, and you could actually press record on the tape. And then when I heard my voice back, I was like, "Oh, I can record!" Oh, I was just and then I would flip and when it had two tapes, I could flip them and then add more layers, and that's how I was layering audio,
Oh,
kind of old
wow.
school tracking. But and then of course I was being really loud in my room, making all kinds of crazy synth stuff and noise basically, and my parents were just like, oh, turn it down. But I was but yeah, no, I was in choir. I was a choir boy, so I learned music from singing as a tenor in choir, and you know, that was the elective I chose in high school and stuff. So and then I got into like guitar and bass and keyboard and things like that. And Timbaland's a really big inspiration of mine. We actually got to both work on and promote a piece of software called Stage Light with Intel, and also Linkin Park got to do as well. And it got renamed as Zen Beats. So Roland
Hey.
bought it, and now it's called Roland Zen Beats. And it had a lot of cool drum kits that Timbaland and Linkin Park and stuff worked on. So, and I love Timbaland's Instagram. I love all the cool videos he shows of him working on beats, and just it's just really positive stuff. So that's awesome. Yeah.
He mentioned actually, Ant goes on to mention that he did that too. He had and then had a tiny Casio keyboard that had a sampler on it. So that's
Yeah. Oh, when I got my first keyboard, I told my dad, I was like, I don't care what it is, it just has to have MIDI out, because I couldn't afford like the high end Korgs and Yamahas and all that stuff, or what I really wanted. But if I was going to get a first keyboard, and it was a Casio, and you know what? Casio makes good stuff, and they're great starter keyboards. And even today, some of their low end stuff is really awesome. And as a kid, I was just happy that in the early 90s, I had the ability to plug MIDI out into Cakewalk into a Sound Blaster card on a really old computer and actually record notes and stuff. And just what a beautiful way to start. It was cool. And it gave me appreciation of all the, you know, the better keyboards you can get today, to have experienced it from that side first. You know, I definitely, you know, didn't get all this stuff overnight.
right.
Okay.
Oh, neat. Although, I just your excitement and love for this is infectious. It's super cool. I love you guys. I'm feeling it. It's so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is really neat. Um, is there anything that you're looking forward to in the future of just audio in general, or in particular like VR or remixing and or anything that you're involved in the future of your niche that you can talk about,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah. So
because I realize we're all a little touching on NDA stuff sometimes.
I am really excited that I got chosen to be the score composer for a new horror survival kind of video game.
Hmm.
And I won't say the name of it, but I'm sure with a few Google searches, people will figure it out. But it's kind of like I love post-apocalyptic audio design anyway. Like I grew up on like Fallout and things like that, so I'm really into that kind of world. And I love zombies, and I love just like Dying Light and The Last of Us, and I like these kind of. I even like the Half-Life universe, what they've done with zombies and stuff. Like it's just all of that is a big inspiration to me. So it was a huge honor that this wonderful Canadian team has brought me on board as their score composer for this amazing, amazing game, and they're I wish I could say more about it for now, but I'm sure smart people will figure out what
Sure.
it is and stuff. But so I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna pull out all the stops and do the most artistic, cool thing that I can dream up. And I'm glad that they're trusting me to do something really cool for their world and their characters and bring it all to life with music and stuff. And then as far as like VR and stuff, I'm very excited for when more people can actually get it, because I still feel
Hmm.
that there's not enough people in VR, like
Mhm.
even experiencing all the stuff that we've currently have on the market. And once that stuff becomes more affordable, we might have a world like Ready Player One, sort of. I don't mean exactly like that, but just where people can jump in and have more fun and talk to each other in that way. Imagine these Zoom calls with like avatars where our lips are moving and stuff, and we're talking to each other that way. That's kind of cool
Yeah.
because photogrammetry is getting really good
Yes.
for visual effects and stuff like that. And I can just imagine that taking off in VR a lot more for like these kinds of calls and stuff. I'm definitely very excited about a lot of new plugins and synths that I'm working on.
Hmm.
And again, it's NDAs. I can't say what they are, but when the world sees and hears these things, they're going to be so happy. And you have to understand, I do come from a time when we didn't have a plugin that could do everything. Like in the 90s, it was cool just to have a compressor, software-wise. And now there's literally some VST or processor or plugin that can do everything from stutter editing, which is when you chop up a beat into little pieces. Like I came from a time when I would actually take the mouse and cut it up, paste, 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 paste. And now you can just go in Ableton Live and twist a knob and go, um,
Wow.
but a lot of us came from that time when we were like really doing surgical edits on audio, like Aphex Twin style. And Aphex Twin is another one of my favorite artists who kind of pioneered acid and stutter editing and cutting things up, and he's one of the grandfathers of the best electronic music in the world.
That's cool. Right on. I'm curious. I suppose we'll kind of touch on beginner stuff. Where these days, where what how like where do you start? Say somebody's like, oh man, I feel similar. How do I dabble?
I think today is the most exciting time to get into audio and music, because everyone that's young today that's getting into it, or old, doesn't matter, um, they don't have the same hurdles that we all grew up with. There's literally like even this whole software, like when we were first promoting it, like you could like lock it to a key, like say, I don't want to play out of key, I'm going to make this C major. And then no matter what you pressed on the keyboard, it would always lock and play the right notes for you. So people that
Oh.
were just kind of getting into like learning keys and coming up with chords and stuff, it's so neat that it was smart like that. And things like that gets you into it. I mean, later you should probably learn real chords and things like that, but but to not scare people away and get people actually excited about like that you can create, like you yourself can create like dubstep or trap or orchestral even. And GarageBand made that possible as well. When that came out, like people don't even realize, like even the most basic DAWs come with some of the most high-end sound libraries and beats and orchestral stuff that you can sound really, really professional right out of the box. You don't need to go spend $1 million on all these crazy plugins and stuff. You can get that stuff later when you get better at kind of what your sound is and what you're doing. But when you're just starting, like as long as you have a decent PC, even just a Core i3 or a Core i5, you can still do really professional productions, no matter what genre you're doing. Like you have like whole guitar amps and guitar effects pedals built into DAWs now. Like you don't have to go out and buy the Boss Stomp pedals. Those are still cool for stage, like when you're rocking out, but at home, it's nice that you can just plug into an audio interface into a laptop or something like that, or a PC, and you can just
Oh,
I'm back.
oh, here, let me rearrange things here before we transition back. Sorry about that, everybody. We had a bit of a hiccup again. There we go.
Not a good day for Zoom.
Yeah, it's a little.
Well, just to wrap up what I was saying is like there's even free software where you don't have to spend any money. The software I grew up on, Cakewalk, which ended up at some points costing like $799 for like the pro version, is now completely 100% free. Like some new company bought the source code and decided we don't want this software to die. So all those professional features are now just free. You just sign up, download it, and you have, strings and beats and compressors and limiters and convolution reverb and impulse responses from concert halls and all that built into it, and it's free. So it's a magic time to be a young creator in audio and music, for sure.
Yeah.
Someone like hunting. Sorry, go.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it just feels like right now for creating like content creation, like anything, video, audio, games, like right now it really does feel like the golden age right now. Like because like you're saying, like there's so many free tools and they're so good, and there's so many resources and communities. Like go on Reddit, go on forums. Like there's a lot of really like people will just give you advice, and it's great.
Oh yeah. And even on YouTube, it's like you don't even have to go to audio school anymore. Like there are so many detailed walkthroughs and tutorials where they literally tell you exactly how to do something. And these people spend all this time to create these wonderful, like even me, I'm like a professional and I do all kinds of stuff, but even I like to go in and learn new things from other people because I never feel like I know it all. And I don't want to feel like I know it all. I love just finding a new way to do something every day, like, oh, I never thought of it that way, or oh, this guy's got this cooler way to do it, or and I learned that when I met the Dust Brothers. They're this producer team in LA. They did like the Fight Club soundtrack and things like that, but they were always talking about how there was no right way to do anything. Like it was what felt right. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you must aim the microphone exactly at this angle at the speaker, or it must be. You don't have to do that. Yeah, you can do that if you want a traditional sound, but if you want, you can throw the microphone in the corner of the room and get some weird acoustic, capture of it. You can put it down a toilet if you want, this style, to get some weird underwater type stuff. But yeah, I mean, do that with a cheap microphone. Don't mess up something really nice. But yeah, there really is no right way to do it anymore. And a lot of times software is so smart now. A lot of plugins that we're working with now have AI built into them. So it can actually pre-analyze the audio ahead of time and help you make smart decisions on how to mix it or how to add reverb. And a good example of that is this company called Isotope. Who I've known them since they were giving out a free plugin called Vinyl back in the early 2000s.
Actually used that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's still a classic, great one. And then I became friends with them, and then they brought me on to do like presets and factory content for a lot of their different plugins. So It's like an honor to this day to be part of the Isotope family, and just to see how
So
they've
cool.
evolved, like from a small team to like this wonderful company making these amazing plugins that kind of make mixing easier and more fun. And you want to sound like Dr. Dre's vocals, or you want to sound like Britney Spears or whatever. Like their Nectar one can really like just a preset, boom, you're done.
Wow.
So it's cool.
That's pretty cool. Oh, that's neat. Um, so there's been some mention. Some folk in the Twitch chat are mentioning Audacity for audio recording and creating. Are there anything? Is there anything else that you would recommend for those out there dabbling in this?
Yeah, Audacity is great. I see Audacity as more of just
Uh-oh.
Oh, we lose Justin.
I think so. Uh-oh. No. as a
Me or you are gone. Who cares?
Nope. Hang on. Here we go. We're coming back. Oh my goodness. So Audacity is a.
I was saying Audacity is more of like it's a great tool, and it's on all platforms. It's on Linux and everything. So that's cool. I like that aspect of it. But
Like he's coming back.
what?
Matt's catching up.
Oh, Matt's back. Okay.
Oh, was I gone? Oh, Houston looked
Everybody-
fine to me.
Everybody
Judson-
got a little skippy there. Sorry,
man.
you guys.
So
we gotta try Skype again.
I would just say yeah, Audacity is a good choice for general recording. The Cakewalk's a good free choice because it doesn't cost any money. Zen Beats is a cool choice, and you get a bunch of cool sounds with that. There's a few like Linux ones, but I haven't really dove into that world too much. I'm more like a Windows person, so I'm kind of sticking to that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, there's the other thing too is this: don't think you have to waste your money on. I shouldn't say waste your money. Spend your money on like $1,000 plugins. If you're just starting, there literally are thousands of free plugins. There's even a DAW called Reaper. Reaper is it does cost money, but it's like only $60, but it still fully works even if you don't pay that. You should work hard to make it, but it's a fully functional DAW, and it works on Mac and PC just fine. So I found it was really kind of fun to do a lot of spatial projects in Reaper when I was doing some video stuff, and it comes with so many cool plugins, like just on its own. So I mean, I just feel like eventually when you find your sound and when you find what you're good at, what you want to do, yeah, you can start making decisions like, oh, I want to be like deadmau5, so I'll go get Ableton, or I want to be like, there's just different tools that different artists use for different types of music. But I've always been system agnostic because I do a lot of trade shows and conferences where I have to learn all the DAWs. And a lot of clients, they give me like sessions in Pro Tools, Ableton, FL Studio, Studio One, Sonar, and so I forced myself to learn them all so that whatever client I was working with, I could keep it in the format that they wanted it when I turned it back into them. So yeah.
Wow, man, I guess I'm a little surprised to hear that there's so many different tools and sounds. I suppose like you were saying, like, oh, if I want to sound like this artist or this one, and there's just different, I guess, ways of accomplishing that sort of unique sound. Really...
Well, and another trend happening right now in the audio industry specifically is they're kind of adopting what Adobe did. So you know how there's the Adobe Creative Cloud, and you pay a certain subscription fee, but you get the whole suite. It's all yours for a relatively a small fee that you can earn back by just getting some jobs. Well, Steven Slate Audio has like his whole suite of plugins that you can get for like, I think it's like $15 or something like that, which is like compressors, limiters, EQs, and just every which way to mangle and destruct and create audio. There's Roland, as you know, the keyboard company that kind of pioneered and created all these beautiful 808, 909, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so they created a cloud called the Roland Cloud. And that one, I think that one's only like $15 too. But basically, you get all of their sets on your computer, Mac or PC, to go into any DAW and just play with it. And then they've got like Studio One has Persona Sphere. I think that's also 15, where you get their whole DAW and all their sound libraries. So even if you're just dabbling and you're just starting and you just want to spend $15, those are good starting points. If you've got a good computer, and then if you decide it's not for you, you just quit the cloud, quit the subscription, and then you only spent $15. What is that, like 2 trips to Taco Bell? I mean, come on.
Right? Yeah. No, serious business. That's cool. Right on. Let's see. Well, okay, that does bring us to a little bit over our hour. If we'll give them maybe another minute or so if there's any final questions. But is there anything else you'd like to shout out? Anything people should check out or know before we go?
Just check out Puget Systems for sure. It's my favorite PC company, so check them out. But yeah, no, just check out my Black Fox Society sound library. It's really, really cool, and it's got crazy beats in there and ambiances to play with, and you can hear it all on my website. So yeah, that'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, all right. I guess we'll say goodbye. Thank you, Justin, for taking time out of the day and joining us and providing a little insight into your piece of the industry. It's been really, really cool. I'm stoked to kind of get a chance to talk to you again and kind of see what you've been up to. And Matt as well. Thank you very much for joining us as well, taking time. And our audience, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Apologize for our technical difficulties, but thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Hey,
and we do this every Wednesday and Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Wednesday we bring on our industry experts like Justin here, and then on Fridays we have our labs rotation of our labs team to give a little hardware software crossover. So mark your calendars for that. Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.